Hello, and welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast with your host, peak performance coach, Brian Bosley. Are you stuck on the hamster wheel of life, spinning and spinning, but not really moving forward? Are you ready to jump off and soar? Are you finally ready to sculpt your life? If so, you've landed in the right place. This podcast is created and broadcast just for you. All of you strivers, thrivers, and survivors out there. If you'd like to learn more about Brian and the Bamboo Lab, feel free to reach out to explore your true peak level at www.bamboolab3.com.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Bamboo Lab podcast. It's been a while since we put out a show. In fact, this is the first recorded interview in 2025. We do have a lot scheduled. We have 3 more interviews next week. But as you all probably know from the last episode I did, shared it with everybody why I took a break. Needed to get back to the spirit and the essence of why I do this, and I did get back to that. So I have decided to have the first guest on this year's episode or this year's podcast to be a good friend of mine that actually did a podcast with me in November of 2022. It was titled "Go Out and Test Your Limits." Now, due to her son being in the military, we kind of had to take that podcast down because we didn't want to put her son and his fellow soldiers in jeopardy. So we took that down because, as this lady said, maybe sometimes loose lips sink ships. So we just want to make sure we took that down. So many of you have not heard this amazing woman I have on today. We have Jen Kjellesvik on. She right now is in Bend, Oregon, and she's just got an interesting take on life. She is definitely an adventurer. She's an iconoclastic person, just someone that's kind of lives a little bit on the fringe of life, which I think I respect people like that immensely. She's a traveler. She's a mother of 2, but most importantly, she is a Norwegian warrior. And we're going to be talking today. She's going to run the show. She's going to share with us a lot about her health and fitness journey. She's going to talk about how she has and is raising and how we can all raise children, healthy children in this crazy world. And she wants to talk a little bit about her spiritual walk with God. Now, before I go on to talking with Jen, I want to share with you, I'm in a new location today. I'm in Neenah, Wisconsin, and this is the first time using my new portable vocal booth. So the acoustics may be a little different than what you're all used to. You're probably going to hear a dog bark. You might hear some noise on Jen's end, but that's okay. We're going to go with it. There's a conversation between 2 friends, and I'm really glad you could all be here to join us. Jen, my friend, my Norwegian warrior, welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Brian, what's up? Thank you so much for having me again.
Well, it's funny because would I reach out to you 3 weeks ago? And I'm like, yes. Jen, I want to do another podcast. You're like, no, I'm not feeling it right now. I got a lot of stuff going on. I'm like, I respect that. I was kind of bummed out. Then it was a week later. She said, no, I want to come on. Let's go do this thing. So that made me feel pretty happy.
Yeah, I figured, if I could, it's such a crazy time right now for everyone. And if I could be of use, if I could say something that helps somebody. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'm not, all these different credentials, but I do have some life experience that I feel like, if I can help somebody, cool, I'm down for it. So,
well, dude, when I watch on your Facebook, for some reason, I think since we became friends a few years ago, your feed always pops up. Your posts always pop up on my feed every day. And
I'm sorry.
Dude, no, I read it all. You put some very deep stuff out there, but unlike a lot of people, including myself, I put very short posts. I post every day, but you put long, thought out writings with your posts. I mean, which takes
people
time.
Are like, write a book, Jen.
Yeah, just gather everything you put on Facebook and put it on a few hundred pages, man.
I don't know, but yeah, I definitely have. I feel like there's some balances that could be corrected, and not like I'm saying, I'm not like know everything, but the things I do know from life experience, I feel like if they could be helpful, and again, health first, that's always been my tagline. Like any parent out there, if I could give any advice to a parent, if you just have one creed you live by, and that's health, and that means everything socially, physically, mentally, spiritually, I mean, scholastically, you're good to go. And if I could just, one thing I want to say and share about my walk with God is radical like straight up. If people knew, like, it is insane. Like the miracles, the things we've experienced in our life, our family. I mean, you can't deny there's a God. There's been some really powerful blessings in our life that it's just no doubt, like I was the least likely to become a mom, I would say. And you kind of know the journey. Yeah. I was basically a guy living out of the van down by the river, right? Yeah, never planned on having kids. And God just had a different path for me and found out I was pregnant, and it's, it goes from there, but there was just miracle after miracle. And, I feel like there's something happening in the world today. There's a falsehood that's going around that the world's overpopulated. If you do your research, you'll find it's not. Mm-hmm. We need men and women to step into their own abilities, their essence. There's such a difference between men and women, and it's all good and it's all complementary of each other. And I've really seen that raising a son and a daughter. And it's like when you start seeing how the pieces all fit together and you get a little bit older and you see through the lies, it's phenomenal. And so if I were to do anything today, I just want to empower people, help them lock into their discernment, their intuition, because it's already in it. It really is.
Jen, when did you start your journey with God? Have you always been a faith-based person, or is this something that happened after you became a mother, or when did that happen for you? When did that journey begin?
I would say when I was I'm lucky in this regard. I was born like knowing there is something bigger. I just had this inside of me and this discernment and this BS detector. And as you know, I was raised in the heart of Utah in a big family that was Mormon. And I was the only one. I'm the fourth of 5 kids. I remember as a little girl looking around, and no offense to anyone that believes it, because my family is I have a huge family and most of them are Mormon. But to me, I did not see truth in a lot of it, but I did know God. And I remember sitting in church, like when I was little, and having these people up on the stand spell out to me how my relationship with God would look. And literally, I was probably kindergarten and feeling insulted. Like, you don't know, that's not how God works. And you shouldn't tell me how to have a relationship because I already know him. Like, I almost felt like this person was interfering because I had a direct connection. And then through the years, things happened. And I told you, there was just so many different scenarios that I just went my own path. And because I called the Mormon pipeline, right, I just didn't follow that. Right. I just blazed my own trails. And through that journey, river guiding, again, I didn't know anyone that river guided. I found, the ad in Outside Magazine to come guide in Alaska. And I just took off. I had my EMT, even though I had like a college scholarship, I got really good grades. I had everything dialed. They wanted me to go to this one school in Utah, and I had bigger plans. I was accepted at one in Hawaii, and they just didn't know what to do with me. So I just blazed my own trail. And it's through that journey, I would say, well, long story short, I met my husband on the river, my former husband, married in a temple in Nepal, in the Bodhin Temple in Kathmandu, Nepal, and was exploring Buddhism for a while. That was a very spiritual experience. But through the years, I've always had this faith in prayer. So that's the foundation. And is 100% prayer.
Do you have to ask you this question regarding prayer? Now, yes. I have gotten so deeply involved in the last several years on manifestation. Manifesting, sure. And when you really dissect it, is there much difference between prayer and manifestation as far as the energy level? That the energy you put out is obviously the energy you bring in. Do you think prayer is connected to manifesting?
I would say the difference is manifesting. A lot of people believe that comes from ourselves, and prayer is from God. There's a power bigger than us. And there's especially when you have children, when you've had divine interventions, like my son's life was saved, my life was saved a million times in scenarios that we shouldn't even be here. There's something operating bigger than us. And to me, all glory goes to God. So the manifestation, I think humans are innately spiritual. And so exploring, everyone has their own journey. I have no judgment, but I know what I know. And you get really laser sharp on what you want and what your beliefs are when you have kids, because you're their guide. So I always started with prayer with my kids and respected their own journey, and through the miracles we experienced, and then being neighbors with some really awesome Christian families when they were little, who literally prayed 40 days and 40 nights over my son's life when I'd been battling 9 years with his biological father, who was this special forces guy. He was an original Blackwater mercenary.
I remember that.
Just some guy I met on the river. Yeah. He was awesome, though. I knew him 3 months and ended up pregnant. And, it was a rough go. The guy took the dark side, and I had to end up protecting my son. But through that, I give credit where credit's due. He was actually the first person to save my son's life. I was traveling across the U.S. to river guide. I always loved kids. I never had any issue with that. I just knew I was too wild to be a mom. I thought I was too feral. I'm like, I'm not a domestic type. I don't think I'd make a good mom. But so I ended up pregnant, and it was between, the river, the Arkansas River in Colorado, going to the Gauley River in West Virginia. And I just slipped in for a quick pregnancy test. I remember flipping my boat one day and crying, and that wasn't like me. Like, I went big. My nickname was Carnage Queen. That's a bunch of guys call me that.
I remember that from the last podcast, actually.
Oh yeah. Like, I live for the river. That's another thing, is like, you have these passions, you can't not do them. Right. And I've continued that this whole time, guided, pregnant, and nursing, class 5 whitewater. It's just part of who I am. That's how I raised my family. But, we were leaving to go back east, and I remember I was headed to New Zealand after the Gauley River. I earned a job there, and I was going to finish my rotor license, and was just figuring out after I left the clinic, like, okay, where can I get an abortion? Like, he walked out, the biological dad, who I just had broken up with, came out of the crowd of river guides. We were all caravanning across the U.S. to the East Coast and in the park there in Canyon City. And he was bold to come up to me, because I was like, don't talk to me again. I'm done, He walked right up to me and he said, Jen, you're pregnant with my son. And if you don't want him, I want him. Like, he knew how I operated, and I was pretty wild. And I tried to lie, and I couldn't. I just started crying. And that was kind of the first place where God really just started happening, seeing these interventions in my life. And it started with that. And then literally the next morning, my mom, who never knew where I was, her feral daughter was somewhere. I never talked to her for months. I called her and said, hey, Mom, I'm going to go to New Zealand. And the first thing she said is, you're pregnant. And I was like, how do you know that? I had a dream.
Wow.
So it just started popping off. And then through the whole pregnancy, I just went on with life as normal. I worked at different ski resorts. I traveled the world doing rivers and coaching, snowboarding, ski tech. Like, I did wilderness EMT stuff. And I just remember one time I took a really bad wipeout. It was a couple weeks before giving birth, on my stomach. I was up at Snowbird, and people didn't know I was pregnant. Right. And it was like, that should have killed him, and went to the doctor. He was fine, but they did pull my pass. Everybody I worked with was like, I can't believe you're pregnant. Please just don't snowboard. Please, just turn in your pass. And then after, we'll throw you this big baby shower. And they did. But it was such a journey the whole way, including surviving domestic violence during that time. And I got out of that relationship as soon as possible, but it was kind of the shotgun wedding, right? 3 days later, I'm married in my parents' backyard in another state. And this guy's like, going to make an honest woman of you. That's their traditional values. And he just flipped a switch. So, it was crazy, but, what everything we went through. But,
Can I ask you a question regarding, so when you talk about God, because I think a lot of the listeners out there will be thinking, I saw a statistic today, that just came out that and it was kind of surprised me, actually. 83% of Americans believe in God or a higher power. I didn't think the number was going to be that high. And that was a recent study. Now but the number of people who identify as Christians has gone down over the last 2 decades, but it has stabilized now, where it was going down every year or every time they did the study. That has stabilized, and they assume it's going to go up again a little bit. But the fact that 83%, because you hear a lot of people, you hear a lot of the atheists or sometimes the agnostic people out there who declare, God is, you're ignorant if you believe in God, and you're, but so you get these outliers that are loud. So when I heard that statistic, I was very surprised that 83% of Americans believe in a higher power or God. But I have a question for you. When you look at God, because a lot of people out there are thinking, well, I don't go to church, but I believe in a higher power. I believe in God. I believe in prayer. I believe in miracles. I believe in, do you think you have to go to church to be, or better question for you, where do you put church itself into your worldview?
Absolutely. Well, in the Bible, right? I believe one God, one book, the Bible. And first of all, the reason I believe in God is because my experience in motherhood, like the things I've seen in my children, the experiences that I've had, there's no doubt there's a God. I mean, they're unexplainable. But as far as church and gathering, it said, read the word every day, pray, and get with we call it the body of Christ, right? Like-minded people. It's like you strengthen each other. There's a saying, iron sharpens iron, right? So it really picky. I've always raised my kids. It's who you're around. Most important choice a kid will make is what friends they're around. Not the school, not the sports, not the church even. It's who you're around, because you do become like them. And they've run with winners their whole life. They've really taken that to heart. And, my son said the other day, it's like, yeah, he's always seeking mentors and people that are better than him at something. And I believe that people that are mentors, they do the work. And your relationship with God is a sacred thing. And I knew that as a little girl. And it's like you have access, whether there's a physical church to go to or not, your walk with God and spirituality is up to you, and you can nurture and feed that and grow that every single day. And I do that. Like for years, I've had a morning practice where I read the word, I pray, I meditate, I set the tone for my family, and I've done that for years. And it's literally where I find my strength. And God will talk to me in certain ways. Like a lot of it's trail running in nature. I'm a girl who needs a lot of time in nature and a lot of fitness. Always been an athlete. My whole family is. And I just feel like honoring your gifts is one way that you stay close to the Creator. The other thing I would like to see is parents being more in tune with themselves and the Creator, because you're going to be able to guide your kids more. To me, my kids, they're not mine. I don't own them, so to say, right? They're a gift from God, and God trusted me to raise them. So I take that really, that's really powerful to me. I don't take it lightly. And I need God's help. Like I pray all the time over my kids. For example, when my son earned, he earned a SEAL contract. I can say that, right? Okay. The first thing I did was we lived in Hawaii at that time. And I was a single mom, and I moved over there with my daughter in 2020. We lost everything. I left my 20-year marriage, and we went to Hawaii, and God just took care of us. There was miracle after miracle. Literally, we lived in hammocks on the beach. The whole islands were shut down. Really good churches there that we go to. We go to a couple just because they're so amazing, even though I know you should zone in on one. But he called me when I was running in the Makawao Forest on the Kahakapau Trail. And I remember he said he got this contract, and I had two minds. One was, first was like, as you said, like I have that warrior in me. I've always had that. I mean, my earliest dreams when I was little is of going to battle. Like I had those dreams when I was little. The second one is of his mom. So the first one was like, heck yeah, let's go get this. If I were a guy and I had even a shot at being special forces, I would take it. That's so sick. Like I would love to do that. Then the second one was the mom heart. It was almost like at the same time going, okay, if you know my son, he takes on the biggest challenges ever. He'll be the first to take the most dangerous missions. He's a true team player. I mean, when he played rugby in New Zealand for Grammer Tech, they gave him the ultimate team man award. Like he throws down for his men. He's super loyal. And I just thought, okay, he will take the riskiest. So again, my play as a mom is prayer. Literally, prayer covers all. And so I had to resolve while I was running in that forest, the fact that he could die. And if that's his path, that's his path. I trust God, right? He's a warrior. I know that from day one. And so I just cried. I was like literally crying when I was running, and I had to just leave it all there. Because with my kids, I don't ever speak doubt or weakness over them. I'm very big on speaking truth over them. I mean, the word, the life and death is found in the tongue, right? Mm-hmm. And as a mother, you have an extra responsibility. The things you say to your kids become their inner voice. And I'm really protective of them that way, where whatever I speak to them is always truth, and it's always power, and it's always strength. And I find that in the word.
I think it's interesting. What you said a minute ago, you said your role as a mother is prayer. Is that what? Can you say that again? I was trying to write down, but can you read something like that? Something to that effect.
Well, I feel like, okay, for example, I have the kids that were given to me to raise, right? That I was blessed to raise. I know them on a spiritual, soulful level, and God has given me these eyes. Like, okay, for example, when my son was born, I did not want to be a mom. I walked into that hospital and told his biological dad, my dreams were shot. I worked my whole life. And what happened was God put this, my friends who taught me about Christianity and the language with that, they said there was an anointing put over me when I became a mom. And I didn't know what that was. But I do remember sitting in that hospital room after I gave birth to him, and I was holding him, and I was in shock. I was in shock I was a mom. It wasn't even kind of close to my plan. And I remember looking at him, and he was, he had these big green eyes, and he was just laying there. And I remember thinking, oh man, I'm so not ready for this. How am I going to live my life and be myself and be a good mom? Because I know what it takes to be a good mom. It takes everything you have. It's self-sacrifice, like everything. And it was not that I was selfish. I just thought I was too wild. I felt guilty for all the crazy things I'd done. I was in the 90s. I told you this, Brian. I was a partier. Like, I was an adrenaline junkie. I was river guiding class 5 on ecstasy and acid. I was snowboarding on mushrooms. Like, I was constantly just pushing the envelope, constantly. And it was like, that is not what mom should be doing. So I literally did not know how to reel in that wild side of mine, where I was constantly pushing, like, all the time. All the sports I did, I just wanted the next big rush and be a mom. And so I had to figure that out along the way. But I picked him up when he was hours old, and I remember looking at him, and he was just self-contained. He was just his big green eyes, he was just looking around, taking in the room. And all of a sudden, this power came over me that I don't even know how to explain it, but I was like, this is my baby. I'll do whatever it takes. Like, I will. It was just a conviction, like, boom, I got this. Like, I know exactly what to do with him. And years later, when his little sister was born, before she was born, he would tell us about her. He'd draw pictures of her curly-haired little sister, right? And when she was born, the first time they held her up, I turned to my husband and I said, I know her. Like, I know her from somewhere. I know her. And I always have. And so I've been really blessed with the kids that I have. Like, we're meant to be together. And again, that makes me believe in God. Yeah. Like, I just know them and they know me, and we're kind of doing this thing together. And I feel like we're here for a purpose. So,
it's interesting because my journey was somewhat similar to yours. I grew up Catholic.
Wow.
But I despised going to church every day, every Sunday. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was young, I'd get up in the morning on occasion. I'd go outside and I'd go in the woods and play. And I would hope that my mom would maybe forget that we had church at 11 o'clock. And I'd be looking at my watch, and, I remember I had a big, huge yellow watch. I remember that as a kid. And I remember thinking, oh, she's going to forget 10 o'clock, 10:15, 10:30. Then right around 10:35, I'd hear her yelling, Brian, come on, we got to go to church. Come on, you got to wash up. I'm like, oh, shit. And I just didn't like it. And so when I was confirmed Catholic, and then after college or high school, really, God, church wasn't even a part of my vocabulary. And I became atheist. Then for a while I became agnostic. And then, because I realized when I got wiser, I didn't really realize that I realized I didn't know enough to be atheist. So that's because atheist to me is a religion too. You have to have a belief, you have to have faith if you're an atheist. And I didn't have faith in anything at that point. So I became agnostic, saying, I don't know. But then I read a quote by Roger Penrose, who I believe is a British, I don't know. I think he won, I don't know if it was the Nobel Prize. I think he was even knighted by Queen Elizabeth. I'm not sure, but a very, very world-renowned physicist, maybe. They asked him what he thought. He was kind of agnostic himself, but he said in a quote that the odds of this universe being created without a guiding hand, a chaotic universe, he said, a chaotic universe, is 1 in 123rd 1 over a billion to the 123rd power. So, which is basically impossible. And he said that's a chaotic universe. Then you have an unchaotic universe, like you have a life on a planet that's actually conscious and sentient, like humans. He said now that number becomes even greater. And it made me start thinking, okay, well, if this guy who's got a pretty big brain stem, he's much smarter than I am, thinks this, and he is a scientist or in the world of science, maybe I should look into it. And I started looking into it, and I thought, all right, there's something to this. And I don't go to church at all. I don't go to a church. I don't mind. Dawson was raised somewhat in a church, a non-denominational, when he was younger. And I used to even teach Sunday school once a month. And I got to tell you, I hated it. I was not good at it.
Totally.
It was boring. I was on there with a bunch of kids. I'm like, I don't want to be here. But I volunteered once a month. But I haven't gone in years. But I have a very close relationship with God where I don't I do pray. I pray in the morning. I pray at night, but it's a conversation. And all through the day, I have a conversation with God. And I can't describe what God is. Like, I don't know that. I don't know. I just, it's a power that I can't even begin to fathom, but it's out there. Well,
I agree. And to your point about science, if you look at Isaac Newton, right? Yeah. Brilliant minds. He pulled a lot of his ideas and theories from reading the Bible, and they don't tell you that, right? Or you go and look at, like, say, Andrew Huberman. He's another really incredible one. And he has a whole podcast of just through his experiences as a scientist, he could not explain things to the point where he now believes in God. And it's everyone has their own journey, right? So what my job is, I know is my family is I speak my truth. I speak light. And like I said, I get a lot of my direction over in reading the word and understanding the word. And you hear all these parents say, oh, this world is so crazy, right? Well, my son was born when he was even he was hours old. He wasn't even a day old. We had the Columbine shootings happen. And I remember thinking, man, what kind of world did I bring my child into? But then my second thought is the knowingness of, he's born and built for this day. Let's go. We're here to do things, right? We have a purpose. And I've always known that, always. But I feel like, okay, so our family does a ton of sports, all of us. Yeah. Outdoor sports to ball sports. We all have scholarships where we played sports in college. My daughter's about ready to graduate high school, and she's got a volleyball scholarship this fall. She's going. And we all coach sports. I still race professionally as a paddler. We always will. I mean, my dad's skiing black diamonds at 80-something. My grandparents did it. It's what we do. We live for sports and athletics. And that said, I think, the most important thing about YOLO, right? Everyone's like, your family is so big on YOLO, right? Like, live it to the fullest. To me, living to the fullest really means living to your fullest potential. It's in every aspect, not just having the most epic adventure, which to me, parenthood is the most epic adventure. But I feel like that means, what are you here for? Like, the big questions, like, what are you doing here? What's your purpose? What's that fire in your heart telling you to do? And that's what I've really nurtured in my kids, is like, tell me what, like, teaching them to tap in. And I feel like that's why there's so much addiction in the world today. People are just tuned out. They're missing something, and they're disconnected from their true selves. And they're not in tune. And if I could be any kind of example, the way I live and the way I raise my kids is, I mean, we're stone cold sober, right? I partied when I was young, but that also gave me street cred to tell to my kids, hey, listen, this is what this does to you. And trust me, you're not missing anything. That said, there is plant medicine, and I've had some profound experiences on mushrooms back in the day, right? That I can see it's a pattern interrupter, right? So when someone says psilocybin is helping cure people, there's so much new medical stuff coming to light. One thing I stayed away from is pharmaceuticals. I don't believe in those at all. Mm-hmm. And I feel like parents are misdirected, and you should never give up your power to the government or the schools or the traditional doctors. I mean, as a mom, your child better than anyone. So tap in, just tune in and teach your kids to tune into their intuition. And the way I taught my kids to tune in, it goes deep, but basically it starts with, I always tell my kids, right, as a woman, especially my daughter, I hold her to a higher standard for her health and nutrition, because she's growing life, right? She has the ability to grow life one day. So as women, we need to know health and nutrition from the get-go. That's a privilege to grow life. So you better get it right. What you eat, and then you're feeding that baby, and then hopefully you're nursing that baby. And it starts with your kids tuning into their own tuition by breastfeeding. When you respond to them, when they have cries, right? My grandmother taught me infants are the only like subspecies or species of human that you can't overfeed. Like you can feed an infant, breastfeed for comfort, right? So those cues go deep, and then they get that response. Seeing that play out in their life, like my daughter. Okay, so my family in particular, we were born just knowing how to swim. So I believe in genetic DNA. These are like the scenarios where I'm like, there is a God, right? I never remember not knowing how to swim. We're just a water family, and same with my kids. In fact, when my daughter was a toddler, she was 2 and 3 years old, I'd take her to the local pool, and she'd push her limits, right? She'd be out there, and I'd watch her. I never put limits on my kids, ever, physical limits, ever. She would be drowning, and she had 2 people pull her out, and the second person that pulled her out, they knew I was watching, and these people felt like I was letting my daughter drown, but I wasn't. I had an eye on her, and she was fine. I was letting her lead, right? She stomped her foot on the side of the pool and just yelled, "Stop pulling me out. I can swim," right? And I didn't tell her any different. I was like, yes, you can. So I hung by, and I'm with her, and I'm watching her, and she just figured it out. I've known how to row boats. Like when I got into, running rivers as a teenager and beyond, like I just knew how things worked. My son went to this little kids camp when he was 11, and he was sailing, and first time in a sailboat, all the kids got pushed across the lake, and he tacked back and came back to the other side and just figured it out. And they were like, "How do you know how to sail?" And he's like, where did you learn? He's like, "This is my first time." Like he just knew. Like there is genetic DNA. He knew how to fight. Like he knew how to wrestle. My daughter, she knows how to dance, how to do gymnastics. She literally just started hucking flips, backflips. She's a volleyball player too, isn't she? Oh yeah. She does everything. We do everything, but it's like, I see these things pop up, like playing music by ear. My mom was a piano teacher for 40 years, right? She's a feng shui interior decorator. She's an artist, and she didn't know I couldn't read music till I was 12 because I would just listen and play, and I'd heard it so much. And my kids, they do the same thing. Like there's so many things inside the human body that if you teach your kids to tap into their divine intuition, like I parent differently than 99% of the world out there because I feel like I've had to lean on my own instinct and intuition since I was a little girl, seeing through. Here's an example. When I was in 2nd, 3rd grade, have you ever heard of that book, Under the Banner of Heaven by John Krakauer? Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. Is so that happened about the Mormons? Yes. Yes. And the murder. The Lafferty brothers. Yes. So that happened literally in my backyard as a little girl. So those Lafferty kids, I went to school with them. I'd see them on the bus every day. I'd see them at church. They lived like literally 2 miles from me. So basically I was exposed to like people getting like radically far out fundamentalism from a young age. And I remember the cops knocked on our door and they said, okay, you can't go into the backyard because the Lafferty brothers were just here to kill this guy, Mr. Lowe, who was our neighbor. And we lived on property with a natural river through our backyard. And I remember that was my lifeline. Like I love to go out and play in the river. I grew up in, on acreage and nature. And looking across, I could see the Lowe's house and thinking, wow, they were just there to murder them. Then they told us my grandfather was also on the hit list. And as a little girl, I remember thinking, wow, these people are getting really far out in their beliefs that they're willing to kill. And so I was exposed to that radicalism at a young age. And, we won't get into politics, but I'm an independent, just to say. I vote for who is going to be the most efficient and, of course, aligns with family values. And that leads with power and strength, right? Let's do what's best. Nothing's perfect, of course. But my point being, I stay somewhere in the middle. Like I have a pretty reasonable, I feel like, gauge on life, as well as a kind of a let live personality. It's liberating because I'm not in charge at the end of the day of my kids' walk with God. My job is to live it first, take them to church, read them the word, guide them, and God has them. They're God's kids, right? So I'll do the best I can. And that makes me, like you've heard me say a lot, my kids make me a better person because I will never give them something to do or teach them something I don't live myself. So in wanting to give my kids the best possible life I can, starting with their character and their standards, right? Then that means I live it. So I've been lucky. My kids don't mess around with drugs, and They know, like, they know how to get a natural high because I taught them that. They're little adrenaline junkies too, right? But I directed that and channeled that.
So do you think that adrenaline junkie mentality, that kind of warrior mentality in both your children, is that nurture or nature or a combination thereof, would you say?
Definitely both.
Yeah.
Definitely both. And that, again, it's like, I feel like I got lucky with the kids I was born with, but I feel like you could give me any kid and I'll figure out how that kid works. And then I will pour into them their strengths. And there are certain things and values and a way of life that kids need to thrive. Like they need an emotionally stable parent, at least one, right? That is constantly there for them emotionally, right? I'm big on natural consequences and pushing the limits and letting my kids test everything, starting with, I have this funny trampoline theory, right? I grew up on a trampoline too. We didn't have nets. To me, I think you rob kids of proprioception when you put up a net. It's a false sense of security and they don't get the natural consequences. So like literally, we're all athletes. So we learn a lot through physical, kinesthetic learning, play, sports, right? So, I mean, in our last house, we had 4 trampolines. I had them off the deck, right? And they would cruise down. And my kids are freaking ninjas because I never put limits on them. They pack into the ground. Cool. When my daughter came home from elementary, and she was teaching herself back handsprings, it was like she broke her wrist at a friend's house doing that. So I went and got a hard cast put on her, but she wouldn't stop doing back handsprings. She was so stoked on it. And at the time, my husband tried to stop her, and I was like, no, let her learn what her body can do. So she evolved to back tucks, right? It was worth every trip to the ER. She broke another cast, and I took her in again, but I never stopped her. Another example is one time we were driving home from a rugby or wrestling tournament of my sons in high school. It was spring, and they overlap. So I can't remember which sport, but we were cruising along. He was 16, and he said, Mom, thank you for never putting any limits on me. I don't even think with limits. And I was like, yeah, that's it. Like, because I truly believe with God, all things are possible. Like we are truly, you can do whatever you want to do. You literally, it's a mindset. And, my kids were the ones on top of the playground, right? They're always pushing, they're up on the top of the trees. And I mean, I had parents shooting me looks from day one. Like, I can't believe now other people's kids, like my youth paddle team I created, I run conservative. I coach snowboarding for decades. I coach a lot of sports with kids. And it's like, I run conservative because that's somebody else's kid I'm responsible for. But my kids, it's open. Like, let's go. And again, like we have a lot of fun. Like one of our punishments in our old house, we had a zip line. So when somebody messed up, right, which we make it playful, right, they'd have to take the zip line. We'd shoot them with a BB gun, right? As long as you don't shoot them in the face, it's all good. That was like, we had so much fun. But one thing I do protect is their dignity and their honor. When my kids would make a mistake, I don't hammer on them. I don't shame them. I correct them in private. I won't even correct them in front of their sibling unless they were involved, but I'll take them to my room. I get down eye level, and I've done this from day one. And I ask whys and hows, like why? And all this stuff is just coming from me. And then later I start reading about, connect before you correct. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've done that my whole life. But it's just this intuition God gave me how to raise them. But I would just say why, and this teaches them self-awareness and self-control and self-discipline. And I would say, okay, why did you do that? And they'd be like, I felt like a lot of times they just need a nap. They need a sandwich. They need to go run around outside. It's something simple, right? And they would explain to me, and then I'd say, okay, so what do you think is the better way to do that? And I would let them just explore and call all the shots. And they're like, well, I can do this. Okay. So do you think you owe this person an apology? I think I do. Okay, cool. One and done, forget it. It's like, I don't hold on to things with them at all. It's like, we're all making mistakes. And if I make a mistake as a parent, I'm quick to correct it. Most recently, okay, so I just told you I turned 50, right? On 11/11.
Right.
And I consider myself, I've got really great health habits, and I've always had those. I've just had a passion for those. Like even when I was a partier back running rivers and I'd be out partying all night, I'd still get up in the morning and run. I think I was the only river guide with a gym membership. I'd go lift after work and I'd race. Like it was like, I'd never be late to work. I held all my jobs, even though if I go part drunk, right? But that was a phase. That was more a social thing for me. I never had any type of addictions, luckily. And those phased out once I became a mom. My athletic and health side just always was there, and it took over. But for example, recently, so I'm exploring what it's like. I'm not in menopause by any means, not trying to be TMI, but it is something women go through, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I had a moment where my daughter was late. She's very social. She's out and she's such a great kid. She has so much going on. And she was over at her dad's and I called him and she said she was doing homework with her friend. And I was like, okay, let's go. We had something we were supposed to do. And I had this moment of rage come over me. It was hormones, right? And she was like, Mom, what is wrong with you? So I raged on her a little bit verbally and the dad, and they were like, girl, right? She gets home and of course the next day I start my period, right? Which is part of what I've learned about raising a daughter is we have these cycles that are so different than men. Dr. Mindy Pelz is awesome. Look her up. Her book, Fast Like a Girl, is amazing. Where you're eating to your cycles. Like women are so different than men. But I apologized and I was like, I am so sorry. It's not an excuse that I had like what we called menopause rage, right? I was like, but it was a reason. It makes sense that like, yeah, you understand, she's a girl, but that's one and done for me. I apologize profusely to her. And I don't ever haul off and call anyone names or do anything like inappropriate. To me getting mad is like probably somebody's, I'm really protecting my kids. The energy I bring to them that way. Apologize to their dad, who's like my best friend. Him and I parent so good together. And it's like, you guys, I got that wrong. I'm so sorry. I won't repeat that. And they were like, no, we got you, Mom. We understand, easy, quick to forgive. But I feel like there was a really cool National Geographic show I watched when I was young, this tribe. When somebody misbehaved in the tribe, right? Instead of pushing them out, they brought them in and put them in the circle, and they would start telling them all the great things about them, remind them who they are. And I love that. And that was before I was a mom. I worked in wilderness therapy programs when I was 18. And I remember seeing that as a youth and going, that's it. That's how it should look. Right. And so I would try to operate that, not give false praise by any means, but tell my kids, hey, maybe if they forget who they are, what's their best self, I love this about you. I love that about you. But again, natural consequences are always how I parent, Go ahead.
Did you find that, look at the 3 stages of, I know your daughter's a senior, I believe, isn't she right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
When you look at obviously childhood, early adolescence, then teen, then adult, when using your style of parenting, was that more challenging in the teen years or was it more, when did you find it most challenging for you?
It's a good question. I don't want to sound, but this literally is my experience. I never had any challenges with my kids ever. And a lot of that I credit to their health and fitness and this connection we have. I mean, my kids by nature are happy by nature and they're even kill all the time. My daughter can have different moods according to hormones and we just explore those. And it's like, yeah, I know what that's like as a woman. It's really important you tune into, okay, what's my body doing right now? But no, I've never had any rifts with my kids. I've never had any type of, like everyone is just open, honest. And like, I tell my kids, like, this is the way I parent. I'm like, please don't lie to me because I won't know. Like, and I'd rather just work on honesty and communication. I promise you, I will lead from the front. I won't lie to you. And they, when they're little, they would exploit that and be like, Mom, am I getting this for Christmas? And I'd be like, maybe, and they'd be like, maybe means yes. They would they play on that. But I made a promise to myself for my standard. I just don't want to ever do that. I want to be a hypocrite to my kids. If I'm asking them to be honest with me, I have to be honest with them. So I've always lived what I preached first. And, you see these parents with trackers on their kids' phones and they're like hunting them down like a private detective. And that's, to me, that's just bullshit. It's like, I don't play that way. I don't want to do that with my kids. It's respect first. And just come and talk to me. When your kids get to high school, all you have is the relationship you built with them in youth, right? And they're going to do whatever the hell they want. I did the same thing. I snuck out. I rebelled. I did all kinds of stuff that I didn't agree with. I didn't have a good relationship with my parents. I didn't feel like I could tell them anything because they would overreact. They didn't understand. And so I made sure I'm not that way with my kids. And my husband had the same experience. He was getting in fights. He was drinking, partying, and his parents he could never talk to them. He hid everything from them. So him and I are aligned on that. We want our kids to be able to tell us anything. I tell my kids, I don't care if you rob a bank, if you murdered someone on accident, whatever the heck you did, if you might be pregnant, right? God forbid. We have standards, but please come home and talk to me and we'll figure it out. Yeah, they'll serve the natural consequences. That's life. You got to pay your dues. But I'd rather you not sit and suffer and struggle alone. Like, let's figure this out. Let's do it the right way.
I do. And I think I'm going to share a book right now. I'm not going to post it on the podcast, but I don't know if you ever read this, Jen, or not, but there's a book written in 2008 called A Nation of Wimps, The High Cost of Invasive Parenting. Have you read that?
No, but it's
great title. I haven't read it either. While you were talking, I was looking for an article I read years ago when I was in leadership at American Express. We were told to read this article and discuss it. I think it was called "A Nation of Wimps." And I thought Tom Peters wrote the article, so I was typing in. But this book came up, written by Hera Estroff Morano, written in 2008. Highly rated book on all the things bubble wrapping our kids, like you said, tracking them on their phones to make sure we know where they are, what they're doing. One of the things I learned years ago, and I didn't learn this with my daughter because she's now 38, my son is 22, but I learned when he was young never to say, be careful when they leave the house.
100%.
I always say, have fun, make great decisions, and I know you will. And I say that with daughter, and I still to this day, when he says, yeah, we're going out tonight, we have a lacrosse party tonight or whatever, I would say, have fun, make great decisions, and I know you will. And
I love it.
And he does. He's pretty responsible. He's 22 and he has his fun, but the word "be careful" can be such a dangerous word because it does tell kids don't take risks, don't take chances, don't do that double backflip.
Right.
Dawson was I have pictures of him jumping off our garage onto a trampoline with no net, no sides on it. And I snapped the pictures. He's like, I can't believe you let us do that, Dad. He goes, all my friends thought you were the coolest dad because you never, you made sure it was, nobody's going to break their neck, but, skiing putting boards on, skiing off the garage because the ski hill was closed or something and letting us do that. And of course, one day we were doing that, Jen, and we were having a gathering at our house. This is probably 8-9 years ago. We had a bonfire and friends over, and the kids were skiing off the roof. And one of the kids came over and he was like, "They shouldn't be doing that." And I said, "Dude, don't worry about it. You get up there and do it yourself." So he got up on the roof of the garage and he fell off and he broke his arm.
Of course, is that not like our neighbors with the trampoline that all got injured? And we had like 20 kids on our trampoline, and it's dog eat dog, and I think that's good. Yeah. Like, let them stake it out. Like, I think parents get way too involved. I had this one mom of one of the kids on my paddle team, and she kept going, "He just doesn't know his limits," and she was just like super nervous. And we don't let fear call the shots in my family. If anything, we push the limits. It's like, yeah, if you're afraid of something, then go handle it until you're not. That's how we work. And I remember telling her, you don't know his limits either. Let him find them. Let him explore. Just let him go, and he did. And it's so empowering. That said, men and women are different. I've really seen girls and boys are different. They're similar in a lot of ways, but, this whole gender confusion going around is just, in my opinion, and we don't have to go deep on this, but I have a lot of thoughts on it. And truths it is absolutely their spiritual warfare. It's dark energy that's trying to steal our kids' identities, right? And I feel like they have tried to emasculate our boys and then also masculate our women. And there's certain, and this sounds old fashioned, but after being an experienced mom now and raising kids, a son and a daughter, I can tell you it's different. Oh, yeah. They're different.
They are.
And they're, too. Yeah. One thing boys need to do, they need to scrap and fight and contend for who's top dog. That's masculine energy. I grew up with 2 older brothers. I have 2 sisters too, but I would follow my brothers around. I was a total tomboy. This is like the 80s, 90s where they would be jumping me on their dirt bikes. They put the rake down in a skateboard and then they put me at the very end, right? It was just they would have boxing matches. They would make me wrestle this cousin of mine who was older than me, and I'd pin him every time, they'd laugh. And it was we were lifting weights, running around. My kids are I wish we grew up in the 80s, Mom. It was just such a good time. And there's nothing wrong with kids, especially males, contending for top dog. It's in their DNA. I would tell my son, he's naturally very, very masculine and very aggressive, very ambitious. And I would tell him, your aggression is a gift, but we need to channel it. So he did all contact sports growing up. He will always do MMA, wrestling. He'll play rugby. I mean, he's always going to do those things. My daughter has her abilities and her natural gifts and talents, and she's different than him, and whatever that kid is. But I feel like I can walk both walks with them because I'm a female, but I'm also a tomboy. For example, in elementary school, I was suspended in first grade for fighting. I was constantly getting in fights at school with boys. I would never fight with girls because I was stronger than all of them, but I had, at that time, my father at home had a bad temper and he'd whoop up on us, right? So I'd go to school and rage, kids. And I got that energy out. I mean, it was just kind of a physical life in that way. But I channeled that. I matured when I hit middle school, high school, and just put that into ambition and accomplishing and channeled that energy. But with my son, I taught him self-control because I saw men in my life that didn't have self-control. And I think that's just the worst. Like, that's part of being a man, is self-control. Yeah. So I would, when he was physical and rough and tumble little boy, I would teach him to put his hands together and count to 10. And then we'd go physically, run around, climb trees, like box, wrestle. He'd wrestle his dad, and even girls too. Like our daughter, she's feisty, her way of, I would protect their fire and that energy and that drive, right? So when she would sass me when she was little, I would take her in a room and it's street cred all day. I would get to say to her, hey, do I talk to you that way? No, Mom, you don't. Okay, it's not what we do. I'm so sorry. I love you. I won't do that. But, she had to channel her fire. And I would say, that's beautiful, but don't use that to sass me or anyone else. Like, let's direct that. If some guy is coming on to you or someone's disrespecting you, that's when you unleash it, go for it. So,
what reminds me of is Jordan Peterson's quote, you should be a monster, an absolute monster, then you should learn how to control it.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite quotes of all time.
100%. A good man, I've raised my son on that saying, a good man's not a harmless man. A good man is a lethal man who has it all under control. And like I said, our warriors, they're born that way. They're providers, protectors. And I know we're running on a little bit of time here. I've got to take my daughter to the doctor here shortly. She's got an overuse injury from volleyball year round the past 4 years. But we're just going to get her back put in. But one thing I would like to say is we really need our men to be men and our women to be women. And there's that whole feminist movement where they treated women like, you're locked down and you shouldn't have kids. And it's just so wrong. Like, being a mom is the greatest gift of my life, and I didn't know how good it was. And I'm so grateful God intervened and gave me a child and was like, oh man, this is the coolest thing ever. Nothing will grow you, make you a better person than, as you know yourself, being a parent. But our men need to be, this is what I think. This is just my opinion, right? We need to be, the essence of a man and woman can be explained in the Bible, right? And then you can use your common sense, like pray over it, think about it, raise your kids, use life experience. And I've learned this after 20 something years of marriage and then raising my children is God designed men to be providers and protectors. And I feel like they're in their full essence when they're that way. And women, we are nurturers, we are providers, we are protectors ourselves too. But women have seasons, just like our cycles have seasons. I'm a woman who goes in seasons. For example, Proverbs 31 talks about the woman in God's eyes, right? And the first time I heard that, we were living in Hawaii, we were at the beach, our kids were surfing. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a really strong Christian. I was figuring out Christianity and what, weighing like, is this truth or not for me? And I said, okay, this Proverbs 31 woman is like such a badass. Like, how am I supposed to be a provider, a businesswoman, take care of my whole village, be beautiful, be strong, and raise my kids? And she was like, at the same time, and she was like, Jen, she works in seasons. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so true. When your kids are little, they're your priority. And I've always known that. Like, you get one shot raising them. And so I'm around for my kids. And as my youngest is getting ready to fly the nest, right? Now I'm going to go back and get that helicopter career. And luckily it's still good to go till I'm 60. I have all these ambitions I've simmered. Channel crossings and outrigger, raft racing around the world. I still racing a P. I have all these things I want to go accomplish. But I have to raise my kids first. So I've simmered these ambitions and brought them along the way. Like, I've done all these things as much as I can around raising them first. Now it's my time. I'm going to go get it. And I really believe God will bless me to be able to make a bigger impact, and that my highest earning years are in front of me, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Then I feel like the provider protector. I had one of my son's friends reach out to me. He's the coolest kid. He grew up with my son, and he's a strong Christian, and he's in Afghanistan right now making a documentary movie about the people of Afghanistan. He just felt like that's where God called him. Such a cool kid. And he's met this girl. I was so honored he would share this with me, but he messaged me and was like, Jen, okay, she wants me to lead her as a man of God. How, in your opinion, what does that look like? You know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so honored you even asked me that. But in my opinion, in your full essence, you're a provider and a protector and a leader. Like, we're all leaders, but I feel like when men lead, women want to respect a man. They want to, right? And man is supposed to love his woman to the point where he puts his life down for her. That's what the Bible says. And I really feel like this is correct after learning this, right? And I said, just be in your full essence. And I've seen God bless men to be able to provide when they have their priorities right. And it's, you know, there's this big talk about he, and so I kind of explained that to him, and he's like, this is so right. This is what, you know, what I should do. And women, strong women, especially like me and the women I found, we want to follow a man that knows what he's doing. But a lot of women like myself, we've had to be the leaders of our family because, yeah. But yeah, there's an order to life. And what I tell my kids is one day when you get married, I want you to sit down with somebody who can spell this out. Like, really take it serious. Hey, this is what, define your roles, have some mentoring and counseling by a Christian mentor about what that looks like and how you can expand God's plan. And to me, that's literally what it means to YOLO, live life to the fullest, because I feel like we've all been given gifts. And when you live within those gifts, you're gonna bless the world. We're here to serve others. That's what I really believe. We're not here to just self-serve and make the happiest lives. And this culture has been pushing people into, it's just a me culture. And it's just, guys, there's so much more out there. Yeah, I could go off on that too.
Well, what you said earlier, and I know you have to get your daughter to the doctor. You're going to a doctor visit?
Yep, chiropractor.
Okay. Have you ever read the book Love and Respect?
No.
Doctor,
nope.
I have the book here. I have not read it. Dr. Egrich, and Egrich is something like that. And the book is titled Love and Respect, and his premise is, through the research they've done, is that women want to be loved, men want to be respected. And of course, we both, and women want to be respected too, and men want to be loved. But our primary need from our better half is, I want to be respected and she wants to be loved. And that is a very universal truth for the genders. And I think what I do believe is this, and I don't get into politics much on this podcast or anything, of course, and obviously we haven't tonight, but I do believe that the vast, vast majority of the Western world believes exactly what you're saying. I do think a small minority who is very loud and very vitriol at times, is trying to convince the world that what you're saying is wrong. But it's been that way for thousands and thousands of years. Now, there's been mistakes made in that. People have used that incorrectly, and they've abused their powers, of both sides have, both genders. But overall, we are designed a certain way. Maybe not everybody. I'm not saying everybody. I'm not saying this is, but for the majority of people. And when we try to confuse people before they get to a certain age, I think it's a very detrimental process that we're putting our children through. You know,
100%.
And I look at you. You were a tomboy, so you had a lot of what we'd call standard masculine traits and behaviors as a boy. And there's a lot of boys who have more feminine traits, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think anyway. But overall, it's, you know, have fun, make great decisions. It's not have fun, be safe, call me when you get there, text me when you get there. You know, and we do that with our children too flippin' often. And it's
about empowering them.
Yeah, it's fear-based parenting, though.
Exactly. Which, like I said, I've shared this multiple times. It's one of our favorite scriptures in our family. It's 2 Timothy 1:7. We're not made in the spirit of fear. It's a spirit. It's not how we're designed. And when you know God and you know God's word, that's what you should weigh everything in this time where you need discernment, right? Weigh everything against the word. That's why you hear people be like, well, I want to raise a kind kid. You know what? You want to raise a wise kid too, because this world is insane. And weigh everything against the word, and you'll know people by their fruits. What does it look like? But it's, that 2 Timothy 1:7, we're not made in the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and self-control, or self-discipline, right? That's our core essence. And that's why I feel like, yes, go push yourselves, like you talked about, hormesis, right? When you're jumping in the cold bath, when you're pushing yourself, you can push yourself so far beyond your limits. And that's like, go for it, do it. Push yourself till your dog tired. Go for it. Like always have a new goal. Always push yourself. That was a saying my mom had too growing up. But Overall, I feel like there is an attack on the family structure, and strong nations are built in the home first. I really see that. I really believe that. And you want to do something well, go home, love your family, take care of your kids. You get one shot, raise them right, put them into this world to contribute. Make sure that they know they're here to use their gifts, and protect those 20s. I feel like when they're in their 20s, that's when they have the most freedom to go explore the world, take the most chances, develop themselves, go to college, go travel, go play on teams around the world, like push those limits, find out who you are. Use your gifting, discover yourself, and then hopefully they want to have families themselves and keep going with the correct values and morals that start building this nation back up.
And I think something you said earlier really resonated with me is don't let fear call the shots.
Never.
I love that. You know what? When Dawson jumped out of an airplane at 14,000 feet in December, right? Or it was December 31st, I think, this year. Right? Remember I sent you the picture?
Yeah.
You know, you were one of the first 5 people that got that picture outside of my family. I know. I'm like, Jen's going to love this one. But I want to I want to talk about that just for a minute. I know you got to go, but I want to share to the audience and you what Dawson shared with me. Dawson and I are both afraid of heights. Not like airplane heights, but more like high, 20 stories up. I don't like it. But he flew out to Hawaii about a week after his girlfriend and her family were already out there. And he called me that he flew out, landed, flew up by himself, landed, they picked him up. Then that night they gave him his birthday or his Christmas gift. And it was hey, get ready, because in 36 hours we're jumping out of an airplane at 14,000 feet. And his girlfriend videotaped him saying, "No effing way, I'm not doing it. I'm sorry, I appreciate it, guys. I really respect you. I'm not doing it. Not a chance. Not a chance." The next day he called me. We talked about it. I just told him, you can go get up there, tether in, whatever you got to do, and you can change your mind at the last minute, whatever you want to do. And I said, just say these 3 words to yourself: I'm ready, I'm excited, I'm grateful, over and over all day long. Mm-hmm. So the next morning he had to drive. They drove about an hour and a half to get to the drop zone, or get to the fly zone and the drop zone. And it was an hour and a half torturous drive. But he said once he got in the airplane, everybody else got panicky and he was reservedly calm. He said, I learned this. All that fear I had for 36 hours, especially once once I released and I was in the air within seconds, there was no fear. And he said, so he learned the lesson that fear is not when you're doing the thing that you're scared of. It's before you do it. It's not while you're doing it. And I'm like, that's a very powerful lesson. Isn't that great?
100%.
It's so cool.
Oh, yeah. People can build up stuff in their mind and it's not even what it is, right?
It never is, yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's like a bucket list for my kids. I have a bucket list for them. Like by the time they're 18, they've got to skydive, bungee jump, dive, paraglide. I have the whole list. Yeah. It's part of how I'm like, some of my biggest tools as a mom is giving them a rush. That's how I keep them away from drugs. Luckily, they don't want to have anything to do with that. But like, I have them doing some radical stuff so they get that natural high. Yeah, no, that is absolutely the way to do it. 100%. Like I said, people, I mean, to put it in like kind of a primitive way, we're like different breeds of dogs, right? Like some of us are worker dogs. Some of us could be lap dogs, but some of us are like, we need the Belgian Malinois, right? We need to go. We need a mission. We need to go to combat. We're wired for this. And it's like you play to those strengths of your kid. Whatever they are born, they really are born who they are. Like you said, nature, nurture. Yeah, never fear-based. Always work from strength. And that's one thing I just don't have patience for, is when people choose to be weak or fear-based. It's like, we have a choice. We all are human. We all feel fear, right? But don't let that call the shots. Like think of the best case scenario and go implement that. Like, go get it. Have you heard of that? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think, if we live by fear is a relentless pursuer. It never stops chasing. And at some point in life, you got to turn and strike back. You got to fight it. And I think most of us, a lot of people just keep running from fear, and it's never going to stop chasing you until it's like a bully. Unless you smack it in the nose a few times, it's going to keep pursuing you.
Well, just know what it's about. I mean, it's there to keep you alive, right? Yeah. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
That you can, couple that with logic and be like, it's not like we don't feel fear. We do. But it's like, we have courage. We're like, okay, I'm going to take a calculated risk. And you see this all over. For example, I've been a river guide for 30 years, right? And I run all kinds of different whitewater. There was this mom, right? So a couple hours from my house is the Columbia Gorge. And there's this awesome river I guided on for a really good company called the White Salmon. It's run off from Mountain St. Adams. It's glacial fed. It's a pull and drop. And it's just a stunning river. It's got the highest commercial waterfall called Houston Falls that you can drop in North America at this point. But, part of anytime we take people rafting, we give them a safety talk at the beginning. It's like, okay, these are the worst case scenarios. How we're going to deal with that. Boom, you go. So foot entrapment is the number one, number two killer on rivers. Number one is no PFD, no life jacket. Number two is the foot entrapment. So when people try to stand up in the river, that's when that happens. So a friend of mine, another fellow guide, took this family. They flipped and the woman got a foot entrapment. And the best case scenario happened for her, which is she fractured her leg and got her leg out. Worst case is you're there. Like, you're done. It's hard. It's really hard to get someone out of a foot entrapment. This woman comes back. So she lost the lower half of from her knee down. She lost that part of her leg, but she lived. She comes back every year with her family to show her kids that she's not going to let this beat her. Right? So they raft the same section every year. I have another friend on the Arkansas, okay? His name's Eric. We guided for a long time out there on the Royal Gorge section. And he had a flip, right? Stuff happens. And here's the thing, you can die in your car, right? It's like you guys, seriously, go for stuff. Like, if it's your time, it's your time. I fully believe that, because I've had so many times I should have died and I didn't, So we fully trust God. But so he took a family rafting. It was this girl's 16th birthday and she was afraid of water, but she really talked her family into going boating and rafting on this section. He's a good guy. These are all good boaters on this section, all of us. And I just got unlucky, flipped in one part. She got stuffed. There's the river changes sometimes with high water, but at this point, Sunshine Falls Rapid had this Sunshine Rock at the very bottom, had this little keeper hole, and she got stuffed in there and died, right? They had to drain the river to get her body out. Really tragic. But that family comes back every year to raft in her honor, right? To just show, we're not going to be stopped by this. And this was her dream. And she talked it's tragic. Life is, I could tell you, you talk about suicide. My kids have lost friends to suicide from elementary school to college. Right. It's rampant. It's not just with our veterans. It's legit. There's a spirit of suicide. It's another spiritual warfare. It's darkness overtaking people, right? And so when you start understanding the word and you understand we're in a battle between good and evil, really, that's what's happening. You see the bigger picture. You are so much more prepared. I have a poem I want to leave you with, but there's a scripture before that. So Ephesians 6:12 talks about we don't wrestle against, flesh and blood, but against principalities. It also talks about putting on the full armor of God. So when people talk about, no war, no this, it's like, no, we are in war. This whole existence is based on good and evil, right? So get ready. So if you have a warrior, feed that, because you need that. There is a contender for your soul for good and bad. And I've seen that with my children fighting it, right? So to get on that right side, right, the powerful side, you need to know God. I really believe that. It's more than just YOLO. Like I said, yeah, that's the fun loving side, but there's something deeper going on, and your children have a mission here. You have a purpose here. We all do. And it's keep going. And for me, like, I've had so many times I didn't think I could make it. So many scenarios where I was like, but I have had this knowingness that I'm built for whatever God puts in my path. I feel like he wouldn't give me anything I couldn't handle. And this is before I really knew Christianity. And I just lean on that. There's a poem I'd like to leave you with. This is one of my son's favorite poems, and I just love it. Do you care if I read it to you real quick? No, please do.
Go ahead. No, I'd like it.
It's called Don't Quit. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when funds are low and the debts are high and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is strange with its twists and turns, and every one of us sometimes learns. Many a failure turns about when you might have won had he stuck it out. Don't give up, though the pace is slow. You may succeed with another blow. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint, the clouds of doubt. And you never can tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems so far. So stick to the fight when your heart is hit. It's when things seem worst that you must not quit. That's by Edgar A. Guest. Love it.
I'm going to pull that up. I'm going to include that in the show notes today. You're awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, you're awesome. You are so
Thank
amazing.
you. So are you.
It's an honor to have you back on here. And I'm so glad the audience now gets a bigger audience than it was 2.5 years ago when we first did this. And we didn't get to air that episode for long. So I'm really happy to be able to introduce to all the subscribers and listeners out there who Jen is and your journey and your wisdom. It's always inspiring. And so I'm so glad. I'm blessed to call you my friend.
Likewise, Brian. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
I appreciate all you do. Just keep giving people a voice, and we can learn from everyone.
Everyone. Hey, get your daughter to the chiropractor.
I will. Okay. I'm on it. Thank you so much.
Much love, my friend. Aloha to you.
Yes, aloha, Brian. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear. Bye-bye, friend. God bless. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us this week on the Bamboo Lab podcast. This episode is inspiring. It's amazing. Jen is one of the most amazing women I've ever had the chance to get to know over the last 2.5, 3 years. Please, there's people out there who need to hear her message, her wisdom, her experience. Please share this episode with 3 people. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't yet. In the meantime, all I ask you to do is please get out there and strive to give and be your best every day. Show love and respect to others and to yourself. And please live with intention and purpose. I appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time.